Welcome to Capital City News, your source for staying informed and engaged with Salt Lake City government. I'm your host, Brian Young with Salt Lake City TV. In our episode this week, we spoke with Patrick Nelson, the city's watershed management supervisor for the Public Utilities Department, about the wildfire fuel reduction that's going on in Parley's Canyon. Our History Minute this week is about the concrete factory that's turned into Fear Factory. Before we get to those, let's take a look at our legislative update, our look-backs, and our final road construction update of the season. At its October 4th meeting, the City Council was briefed by the Public Lands Department about the Glendale Regional Park Preferred Plan, continued their discussion of zoning for the Other Side Village Pilot Project, and adopted a joint resolution with the mayor to declare the second Monday in October as Indigenous Peoples Day. At its October 11th meeting, the City Council, acting as the RDA, received briefings and voted on their second budget amendment of the fiscal year, the Accessory Dwelling Unit Financing Program, and the Utah Performing Arts Center interlocal agreements. And as the Council, they received a briefing about the Airport Master Plan and further deliberated the general obligation bond that will be on the upcoming ballot. To learn more about these issues or any others, please visit slc.gov/council.
The needs of this capital city are dynamic, they're ever-changing, and our desire to evolve and serve and meet those needs continues with that momentum.
Mayor Aaron Mendenhall and Salt Lake City Police Chief Mike Brown released the latest update of the department's crime control plan. The strategies outlined in the revised crime control plan include expanding recruitment and hiring efforts, developing a violent criminal apprehension team, implementing the police civilian response team, expanding the department's call diversion program, and its online reporting capabilities. To learn more, visit slcpd.com.
We're here to celebrate the opening of a bridge that is so beautiful that it feels like it's been there all along. And that's what the best public projects look and feel like. Like you can't imagine life without them.
Salt Lake City Mayor Aaron Mendenhall and other local leaders celebrated the completion of a new pedestrian bridge over the Jordan River to Backman Elementary School, making for a safer, quicker passage for Westside children. Students who live in the neighborhood to the west of the river have previously reached the school by using 500 North or 700 North, which made for a longer walk that was closer to traffic.
As autumn changes and the leaves begin to fall, remember to do your part to keep them out of the gutters and storm drains. If you need to, you can request extra yard waste cans to handle the extra debris. To get your extra bins, visit slc.gov/sustainability.
Let's take a look at the road construction projects wrapping up this fall in Salt Lake City.
The 300 North pedestrian concrete bridge deck pour happened earlier in October. Steelwork continues on the supporting steel beams, stairs, and landings. Although the bridge has been raised, it remains closed to the public. For your safety, please do not use the sidewalk on the south side of 300 North in the construction zone. Use caution as you approach and cross the railroad tracks on the north side of 300 North. On 200 South, striping is anticipated to take place this week. There will be no on-street parking on the north side of 200 South between 900 and 700 East during this work. Crews have begun removing and replacing concrete accesses on the south side of the street. This work is anticipated to be completed before the end of October, and Dominion Energy crews will remove the construction barriers in the center of the 200 East intersection and temporarily open up north and southbound travel as early as mid-October. After this work is cleared from the intersection, there will be one lane open in each direction. Finally, the block on 900 to 1000 East is closed through mid-November while Dominion Energy upgrades their gas line.
That's it for our road construction updates for this season, but stay tuned through the winter as we give you a preview of the road construction projects coming up in 2023. To keep up with these projects and any others in the city, be sure to visit slc.gov/construction. For our interview this week, we spoke with Patrick Nelson from the city's Public Utilities Department about what's going on to mitigate wildfire risk in our city's vital watershed areas.
My name is Patrick Nelson. I work for Salt Lake City Department of Public Utilities as the Watershed Program Manager. The Watershed Program is a team of folks that help protect the water supply for over 360,000 people before it hits the treatment plants. After it goes into treatment plants and gets minimal treatment, this water goes to many parts of the valley, including Cottonwood Heights, Salt Lake City, Mill Creek, parts of Holiday, and if you count Little Cottonwood, also parts of Sandy City. We're here today talking about a new fuels reduction project, and that's a new thing. The history of the watershed has always been one of protecting the trees. And 100 years ago, when the settlers were here, they were using the canyons to help build up the valley. Wood for timber to build shingles and structures. They did mining to help boost the economy, and it left the canyons a little bit hard up. And the last 100 years, the city has worked very closely with the state of Utah and especially the U.S. Forest Service to help protect its water supply through environmental protection. But after 100 years, the fuels have built up to a point where, with climate change, the fires can be, in the 100 years of fire suppression, the wildfires can get really a little out of hand. So now they're looking at fuels reduction projects like this one here. The city, especially Salt Lake City Public Utilities, collaborates heavily in the watersheds with everything that we do. Like I said, the Forest Service is a huge partner. Salt Lake County is another huge partner. The state of Utah and both their Division of Forestry, Fire, State Lands, and Division of Wildlife Resources. We have expertise in knowing that fire hurts our watersheds and makes it difficult for our treatment plants to treat, but we don't have the expertise in fuels management. So we've been working really closely with the Division of Wildlife, Forestry, Fire, and State Lands, and the Forest Service to develop, following their lead, a fuels reduction program in Parley's Canyon. This project, the design of it is to reduce the density of the oaks. So if you remember in 2021 when we had that fire that ripped up off the freeway, off of a car whose catalytic converter was just throwing sparks, that fire moved very, very fast. And if we didn't have that level of air support just sitting because some other fires weren't letting them fly up in Oregon or something like that, it would have spread over into Summit County. And so we were lucky to have it. This project will help slow down any fires coming off the freeway, and it'll also reduce the fire severity. It won't stop them, but it'll make the impacts to our ecosystems and our watersheds a lot less, therefore protecting water supply ultimately. The way the Forest Service and the state describe it is they're going to have masticators up in the oak. So big tracked equipment, basically taking these oak stands and not removing 100%. So if you look at our treatment area, it's just making little pockets of oaks. So creating little pathways through them. It's not going to be mowing, it's not a clear cut, it's not anything, it's going to be little pockets of oaks remaining. And so there'll still be quite a bit of oak left because oaks are so essential to the wildlife and they provide so much food for so many different species. Mule deer, elk, black bears, wild turkeys, and all the species that depend on those to survive. We as a city are going to have to really formulate fire management into our watershed protections looking towards the future. We've seen fires blow out water supplies for cities in Colorado, for the Central Utah project, and the infrastructure is really hard to upgrade and change. So fire management and fuels reduction is going to be part of watershed protections moving forward. But in the greater context, this, what I understand, is just the start of the fuels reduction programs in Salt Lake County. This will be one of the most visible to start out with, though. 400 to 600 acres of oak thinning, and then they're going to move south from here year after year. They've been doing a lot of clearance work, and so I think folks can expect to see in their watersheds, Mill Creek Canyon, Big Cottonwood, Little Cottonwood, more different types of fuels reduction, but fuels reduction nonetheless. And the intent is just to reduce fire severity and long-term impacts. So if you get a fire, it's not killing the soil, it's still leaving the genetic memory, you know, the microbes and the seeds that we need to kind of re-sprout, as opposed to 100 years of fuel buildup and just burning it and making it a wasteland.
It's time again for another spooky History Minute. The year was 1900. Workers at the Portland Cement Works, located between 6th and 7th West and 8th South, toiled to provide the cement needs of the Salt Lake Valley. In November, a man named George Howe, an amiable fellow by all accounts, met a horrifying death at the hands of the factory's coal crusher. According to the November 23, 1900 issue of the Deseret News and Salt Lake Tribune, Howe had reached in to oil the gears of the machine, and it tore his arm right from his body. He slumped down and died instantly from shock. In 1903, a man named Fred Holmberg, a structural iron worker, came in contact with a live wire and then fell 25 feet to his death at the factory. Over the years, more workers at the industrial site met grim and gruesome fates. Some died by suicide, some died by train, others were boiled alive, others dismembered. Over the years, the site fell into disrepair. Businesses would lease the property hoping to make a go of it, but they never lasted long. By the early 2000s, the storied horror of the place made it perfect for wanderers and transients. In 2010, on the near-abandoned site, the Fear Factory opened, taking the horror of the factory's history and turning it into a world-class haunted house attraction. That's it for this week's episode of Capital City News. Remember, the best way to stay engaged is to stay informed. You can do that by following us on social media at SLC.gov, subscribing to us on YouTube, or watching us on Channel 17. So, reporting in from City Creek Canyon, I'm Brian Young.